Pancharatrena budbudam Dasahena tu karkandu Peshandam va tataparam. Very nice. Okay, so kalalam, mixing of the sperm and the ovum. Two. Then Ekaratrena on the first night. Pancharatrena by the fifth night. Budbudam, a bubble. Dashahena in 10 days. You may have noticed that Dasha, 10, comes into English as decimal. Decimals in mathematics. So the decimals, the Dasha, comes from the Sanskrit Dasha, 10 decimals. Two. Then Karkandu, like a plum. Peshi, a lump of flesh. Andam, an egg. Va, or Tatha, thence Param, afterwards. Okay, you get into Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshu Umitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vande Nandavajastrinam Padarenu Mavikshnasha Yasa Harikato Dvitam Punati Bhunatrayam Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripasindhudevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo. We could do call and response if you like, the translation. Is it okay? On the first night, the sperm and the ovum mix. And on the fifth night, the mixture ferments into a bubble. On the 10th night, it develops into a form like a plum. And after that, it gradually turns into a lump of flesh or an egg. As the case may be. So obviously, if it's birds, it's eggs. And humans or mammals, they give birth to a baby. So, flesh. So, okay. What is Kapila Muni doing here? There's 4 parts of knowledge in Vedas. If you just like when you're reading Gita, Bhagavad Gita, usually the best way to divide Bhagavad Gita into categories is usually from Bhakti Vriksha, Bhakti Shastri, from a Shastri point of view. They divide it into 5 categories, which is Jiva, Ishvara, Kala, Karma and Prakriti. You should know all that. I'm sure you know all that by now. When you're reading a little higher level into Vedas, you got to understand Vedic studies into 4 categories. And similarly, there's 5 categories, there's 4 categories in the Vedanta. 4 categories. Although you'll see thousands and thousands of verses, you can put them into categories. The first category is consciousness. First category is consciousness. Kapila Muni had already covered that. The second category is mind and matter interaction. How a consciousness which was not supposed to be in a material world, how did it try to fit here? How does it fit here? You understand? So the second category is mind and matter interactions. So this is where Kapila Muni was talking about, the ether, the light and the wind and the water and the earth and how they conglomerate in successive patterns, and then eventually the senses are coming, and how the chinmatras are interacting with the tanmatras. So that was the second category, which is the mind and matter interaction. Yeah? And the third category is called, in our terms, it's biogenesis. Genesis. So Genesis, the English term Genesis comes from the Sanskrit term Janma, same words. Janma, Genesis, Gentiles, Gents, all this Gen comes into English, it's Genesis, Janma. So the third category is called biogenesis. Biogenesis means how does a living entity come into formation? How do you get your morphology? You understand morphology? Anybody understands morphology? Morphology is the structure of your body. It's a structure. Morphs is a form. Ology is the reasoning and the science of the forms. So it's morphology. So biogenesis. So he's talking about morphology, biogenesis. And finally, they have to cover what's called cosmic. Astronomy, cosmology, they have to cover cosmology. So these are the 4 Vedic categories that has to be covered. If you're studying Vedas in these 4 categories, ultimately and connecting to consciousness, there's no problem. Because you will notice thousands and thousands of times Prabhupada is saying there's no need to study Vedas. If you are a bhakti. Naveda yagnar dhyane na tapo birugre. Krishna says, Naham vede na tapasa, na dane na charjana, shakyam video drashtum drashtumani simamyata. So, not by Vedas you can see. That's when Prabhupada is saying, don't worry about the Vedic studies. Prabhupada is saying the Vedic studies from a ritualistic platform for sense upliftment and enhancement of your sense gratification. That's what Prabhupada is condemning. But if you're studying the Vedas in this structure, as Kapila Muni is doing, as Sankhya is doing, the first category being consciousness, the second category being very good. Good catch. Thank you. So the third category is biogenesis. Biogenesis is morphology. Yeah? So by looking at the words, you might be kind of getting a hint of where I'm going. The verse is talking about morphology, the form of a human being in the womb of a mother. And the final category is astronomy, cosmology, because you need to understand where does the universe come from. Like some people say Big Bang, some people say design, ID, they call it ID, capital I, capital D, intelligent design. So we have Big Bangs, we have singularity. I won't do all that and bore you today. I think I've already bored you enough, so I'm not going to go in that. So that's the astronomy and cosmology. So today we are dealing with this word, 3.31.2. What we're dealing with what we are calling it biogenesis. How does the morphology come into place? Yeah? So I'm going to give you a little Sankirtan because we have some Sankirtan devotees. I'm going to start with a Sankirtan story. Is it okay? You like Sankirtan stories? So one day oh God. Don't ask me how long ago. Okay. So I was doing books and the son and the father were walking past my store. And the son just took a look and then walked 10 feet past and then backpedaled. And the father is kind of pulling him away because there's sports, there's karate, there's swimming, there's tuitions, air standard, the things are pumping up, right? Father is pulling that way and the son is pulling back. The father is pulling that way, the son is backpedaling. Finally the son won. He backpedaled, 15-year kid, huh? So he backpedaled, he came back and he said, I want to have a quick chat. He had a quick chat. He took my books, he went away. Year after, he rings me and he read all the books. He took a whole stack of books, every Prabhupada book I had. He took a whole stack of books and 1 year after he rang me and he said, he read all the books. And he has become a completely strict, renounced sannyasi in the house. Completely renounced. He doesn't have any material attachment whatsoever. His mother takes him to shopping, he goes for 90 minutes, roams around the whole shopping mall, and mother says, "Can you buy something? It's a big celebration coming." And he turns to her and says, "Simple living, how are you thinking, Mom?" And the mother is saying, "What is going on here?" He showers with cold water in the morning, 4 o'clock, doesn't matter, it's -3 outside. I didn't tell him anything. I didn't tell him anything. We just had a chat, maybe a couple of chats, maybe 40, 45 minutes. That's it. One time at the stall, one time on the phone. That's it. Completely renounced, practically a 15-year-old sannyasi in the house. And everybody in their family is completely disturbed. So after years and years and years, the family called me, contacted me. I was on a holiday somewhere with my children. I wanted to give them an intensity. They had worked very hard with Bhadra Purnima, Kartika, Christmas marathon, December marathon. They had worked very hard, the girls. I thought I'll give them a little incentive. So I took them out somewhere, Foster, I think. We were driving, I don't know, swimming, I don't know, God knows what we're doing. So I get a phone call and the whole family is completely disturbed. Can you hear me well? Yeah? So the whole family is completely disturbed. And they call me and say, "What have you done?" I said, "What have I done? You made a sannyasi out of my boy. He's practically a sannyasi in here. All he was doing, like perfect brahmachari sannyasi in the house." I said, "You should be happy." They said, "Shame on you." I said, "What do you mean you should be happy? I mean, I'm that close to cursing you." I said, whoa. We can talk this nicely. You don't need to jump into curses. So I spoke to them and it was a very long discussions and we met. It's becoming very serious. I don't want to details. It's becoming very serious now. Very serious. So finally we had to meet, we spoke, and I said to them, is there a chance that a yogi that was not accomplished in his last life, is there a chance that he might have taken birth in your house? I could see like the whole family, their eyes went like as big as Jagannath Bhagavan, like, what? What are you talking about? I said, there is a chance that this boy was a yogi in his previous life, had some business to complete, and he found a simple family like yours, and he took birth and is finishing the business. Why can't we see that perspective? Everybody needed a glass of water first. So I asked my girls to bring some glass of waters. And I said, if you need some tissues, I'm happy to provide some tissues. So they couldn't believe it. What? So this boy is completely transformed into a yogi. That's all he thinks about. That's all, nothing else. And anyway, why am I going there? Why am I going there is because psychology, today's topic is psychology drives biology. So today's topic is psychology drives biology. Yeah? So yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajetante kalevaram tam tam yuvati kaunteya sadadad bhavavita. What is Krishna trying to say? Krishna is trying to say is the psychology that prevails, the psychology that you have developed throughout your life prevails your body, that prevails drives into your next biology. To put into academic terms, that's what really Krishna is saying. It's not It's not so esoteric and unreachable and just simple words. All he's trying to say, the psychology that you develop, which prevails, drives you into your next destination, biology. So psychology drives biology. It's that simple. Okay. Now you might say, okay, thank you very much. It sounds a little too mystical and metaphysical. Could you please explain? We'll do that. So, but before I do that, I'll just read a little bit of purport, yeah? Because I don't want you to ask for refunds. The Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Transcendental Purports Prabhupada ki jai. The body of the soul develops in 4 different ways according to its different sources. One kind of body, that of the trees, sprouts from the earth. The second kind of body grows from perspiration, as with flies, germs and bugs. And the third kind of body develops from the eggs. And the fourth develops from an embryo. These words indicate that after emulsification of the ovum and the sperm, the body gradually develops either into a lump of flesh or into an egg, as the case may be. In the case of the birds, it develops into an egg. In the case of an animal and human beings, it develops into a lump of flesh. Yeah? So, before going into, this is obviously the Vedantic and Vedic conclusion. But before going into the Vedic conclusion, we must understand what the standard ethos. You understand ethos? Ethos is a standard belief outside in the world. So let's understand what the standard ethos in the outside world in the schools is. Is it okay if you want to understand what standardly goes out there? What people say? There's about 8 billion people in the world now. So let's understand what the 8, we're only maybe 4 or 5,000 in Sydney, right? Serious people maybe get condensed a little bit more, but people acquainted generally with Hare Krishnas, let's just give it a rough and take 5,000, yeah? In the whole world, give and take 6 million, 7 million, 10 million. But there are 8 billion people on the planet, yeah? So, we need, from a magnitude perspective, we are tiny, but from a parampara perspective, we have enormous to offer. But from a magnitude perspective, we are very tiny. So, what are the 7 billion people? Say more than 7 billion people have been taught to believe. They have taught to believe that the human being comes because of 3 factors, and it's called modern synthesis. You heard of this word before? It's called modern synthesis. You can Google it later when you go. So modern synthesis is a combination of, there is the biogenesis. So I was talking about this verse is talking about biogenesis. So I'm talking about how biogenesis is described and is understood by the 8 billion people out there. And this is how they understand. The biogenesis from the outside perspective, from the university's academic perspective, is understood by what's called a modern synthesis. And modern synthesis, the name indicates, it's a synthesis of 3 things. 1, natural selection. 2, chance mutation. 3, genetic variations. So these 3 combined, they're saying forms morphology, forms the ovum or the embryo. That's the standard understanding. So is it actually, now we need to really understand, is this modern synthesis that, so out of this modern synthesis, the basis of the whole modern synthesis is that the DNA, the gene, the DNA contains all information. Have you heard this before? You heard this before? That the DNA contains everything that you need to know about biology, about biogenesis, about your bodies, about your psychology, about your mentalities, about everything is provided by DNA. Have you heard this? This is the understanding. Completely questionable. Completely questionable. And I'll give you a reason. You want me to explain? Yes? Yes or no? Yes? Okay. So, what this words is talking about, where in the 5th day, on the first night the sperm and ovum mix, on the 5th night it ferments into a bubble, and the 10th night it forms into like a plum. So this plum is called zygote. This plum is called zygote. We're going to do some systems biology today. Is it okay? Is it too much? But what Kapil Muni is talking about is systems biology. Please understand. What Kapil Muni is talking is actually systems biology. Molecular biology, that's what he's talking about. So, in the systems biology and molecular biology, what forms, this flesh, the bundle of flesh that is formed, it's called, in the systems biology, the name for it is called zygote. Zygote is conglomeration of a few cells. So the sperm goes and matches with the egg, and then once they combine, it's called zygote. But before it forms into an embryo, there is actually a whole transformation process of the zygote. So your body contains of, give or take, about 38 trillion cells. I counted them. So, trust me on that. Your body has got about approximately, give or take, 38 trillion cells. Maybe 40 because you are a little taller than me. So, someone like an average person has got about 38 trillion cells in your body. 38 trillion cells fall into 200 categories, 200 types of cells. There are 38 trillion cells, but 38 trillion cells form into 200 categories of cells. So your body is made up of 38 trillion cells with 200 categories of cells. That's how it forms. But how did it start? All start from? Very good. Fantastic. I love this guy. So it starts from zygote. So the zygote was a mixture of the egg and sperm. Yeah? So what happens is, in a cell is a combination of DNA, cell machinery and membrane. Okay, yeah? The cell is made of a cell machinery, DNA and a membrane. It has to be protected. If it's not protected, it can't do the function. Yeah? So what happens is, this zygote, what it does is it splits duplicates into it's called phenotypes. It duplicates into different cells. Eventually one cell becomes 8 cells. First, to begin with, it becomes 8 cells. And those 8 cells get multiplied and become 64 cells. And the 64 multiply and keep going on and on and on and on. Now the point I'm trying to make is this. The story that the DNA contains the blueprint of your body, the blueprint of your psychology, is a complete, excuse my French, rubbish. Because DNA is not a read-only memory, it's a read and write memory. It's like a big library. You go to a library, you have all the books in there. But you will choose the books that you want to read. You choose the books that you are wanting to books that will help you writing in your book. That's what you do, right? So in the same way, DNA and genes have all the information, but you as a conscious entity will actually choose the information that you require to develop your body. That's what is actually happening. And this is called epigenetics. So you have a DNA, it multiplies into different cells, and the cells 200, near 200 categories of cells. And when these cells goes, for example, after they keep multiplying, this one cell goes and says, I want to become Bhava Prabhu's heart. I want to be part of Bhava Prabhu's heart. And one cell is going and saying, I want to go and become Kamsari Senda's brilliant brain. And one cell is saying, I want to go and become Devati Kapila's eyes. So when the zygote is progressing from cells to tissues to pathways to organs to finally organism, there is a lot of information that is going into the cell that the DNA doesn't contain. So it was Francis Crick and James Watson in 1958. They ran around the whole Cambridge University. Yes, we found the base, the story of life, the DNA and genes. No, now the systems biologists like Dennis Noble and Jane Shapiro from England, systems biology, they started systems biology. They completely changed. No, it's completely wrong, because when the zygote, the embryo starts with few cells, and as the cells are growing, as the morphology is coming out, which cell becomes an eye, which cell becomes a leg, which cell should become a brain, which cell should become a heart, which cell should become an ear organ. No, DNA doesn't have that information. So where is this information coming from? Where is this information coming from? Fantastic. So the information is coming from a Vedantic perspective, the information is coming from our consciousness, Atma, and facilitated by the Paramatma, and the faculties that are provided when Paramatma is facilitating, the faculty may be supervised by Paramatma and facilitated by the nature. So that is the story of Vedanta. So the DNA doesn't actually have all the information. It is like a library. It is not read-only memory. It is read and write memory. It is accumulating as you are growing up. As you are growing up, you associate with, say, musicians. So even though the DNA originally didn't have any information of a musician, because you've been associating with musicians, your DNA will start accumulating what is necessary for you to be a musician. So if Jagai and Madai didn't have any inclination for bhakti, Jagai and Madai had no inclination for bhakti, on the contrary, they break Nityananda's head with a pot. Right? So clearly their DNA, if you check their Jagai and Madai's genes, you will clearly see there is no genes of bhakti. But what happened? Coming into contact with Nityananda Prabhu, the DNA changed. The DNA is not a read-only memory. The DNA accumulated these new instructions from Nityananda Prabhu to act now as bhaktas. That is why you cannot go to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu without you go to Nityananda Prabhu, because he is the only one who has the capacity to change and alter your DNA. Can you believe this? Have you ever heard this? Only Nityananda Prabhu can alter your DNA and genes. Have you ever heard this before? Can I take the credit to have disclosed this to you today? He actually has because Jagai Mother, you could check his DNAs, you could check their genes. They didn't have any genes of bhakti. They didn't have any genes to go towards the path of self-realization. Before they? Well, that's a very good question. I can contour that. Maybe because they had bad genes, they didn't go along with their family. Maybe they didn't have the genes, that's why they didn't go along with their family. You like that? Could be. No, I'm just saying, could be. Maybe the reason they couldn't fit in their family because they never had the genes. You know, they sometimes say, I was never cut out for this. And I was cut out for this. They say that, don't they? Like sometimes some people go to a university and they're doing like some, don't worry about universities. Sometimes they want to be a Hollywood star or something. They go to the Universal Studios. They end up in the Beverly Hills. They end up in the Hollywood. They are doing this act. And the director says, you're never cut out for this. You're never cut out for this. Just go home, back home, and just, be your, school teacher. No, but I want to be a model. No, just go back to your basketball coaching. That suits you. You're never cut out for this. Maybe they were never cut out for this. Maybe they didn't have the genes to suit, to actually fit in their family. They got the wrong family. How? Couldn't that be a possibility? So the point I'm trying to say is they never had the genes, but the genes had read and write memory, and Nityananda Prabhu altered their genes. So if you want to alter your genes, and if you want to follow the path of bhakti, which is the reason they say you have to go to Nityananda Prabhu, because he can actually change the whole rung of your genes, he can actually change the programming of your DNAs, he can actually change the programming of your cells, and he can put you into a completely different lane of bhakti yoga. He can do that. So, before we progress, I'll just quickly capture, where I came. I'll just quickly capture what I was trying to do, because I don't want to confuse you and lose you, because this is very, this has been going on. This research that I'm talking about is like 150 years of research. I'm putting it in like practically 20 minutes. So it's very unfair. I'll just recap it. So I started with the Sankirtan story, an example, where I was giving an example of a boy who met me, who talked to me for maybe a couple of hours. He takes Prabhupada's books, he goes home, and he completely transforms into this complete renounced person. And I told their parents there is a chance that a person previously who was maybe who hadn't completed his accomplishment as a yogi took birth, and his psychology has now driven his morphology. So I said the topic of today is psychology is driving morphology. That's what I said. So, and I gave you an example. I gave you our understanding from Vedic perspective is Atma paradigm. Or Atma is driving our morphology. But from outside 8 billion other people that have accepted what they've accepted, in science it's called what's called biogenesis. And what the outside biogenesis, in the outside 8 billion people that have been led to believe, is that biogenesis comes what's called modern synthesis. Yeah? Or it's even called a Darwinian synthesis. And the Darwinian synthesis is a combination of 3 combinations: natural selection, chance mutation, survival of the fittest, and the variation of genes, which is survival of the fittest. But what I am questioning is it is explaining the survival of the fittest, but it's not explaining the arrival of the fittest. It's explaining the survival of the fittest, but it's not explaining the arrival of the fittest. So they are saying that the DNA explains everything, but what I was trying to explain to you, DNA doesn't explain your morphology, DNA doesn't have your blueprint. This has been confirmed by systems biologists, because DNA is just like a big library. You go and you choose your body from the library. So the pathways from the DNA to the cellular to the pathways to the organs, I said there is something called a zygote that forms. After the 10th day that Kapila Muni is explaining, the lump of flesh, the name of it is called a zygote. And the zygote eventually becomes 38 trillion cells with 200 categories. But which cell goes and becomes your eye, which cell has to go and become your heart, which cell has the information for the cell to go and become your kidney, the information for the cell to go and become your eyes and your brain, this information is not in the DNA. Because the DNA is not read only, it is write also, read and write. It is constantly accumulating new information and switching from one category to the next and combining with permutations and combinations and variations to make different parts of your body, and this is called and this forms into a category called epigenetics. That is what Kapila Muni is talking about. So Kapila Muni in this chapter, all Kapila Muni is talking about in simple language, he is talking about systems biology and epigenetics. That your consciousness, based on your inclinations, based on your psychology, you're always giving back information to your DNA. And I gave you an example that there is a good chance that Jaga and Madai never had the DNA and genes for bhakti. But when they came in touch with Nityananda Prabhu, when they came in touch with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all of a sudden their DNA and genes accumulated this new interest and this new inscription of Bhakti Yoga, of Atma Jnana that they never had. That is what Kapila Muni is trying to explain to us. And I connected it to Bhagavad Gita verse which says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tejat ante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. The psychology, the conglomeration and the mixture, the whole total psychology that you have accumulated, smaran bhavam. Bhavam means accumulation of all your psychological tendencies that you prevails, attracts the next morphology which is your body. That is exactly what Kapila Muni is trying to say, exactly matches with what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita. And eventually will always connect with Prabhupada's purpose. 100%. It will always, as long as Prabhupada is talking, as sometimes Prabhupada is talking on social matters, like, they didn't land on moon or things like that. Okay, that's a different category of statements. But as long as Prabhupada is talking, purporting from hermeneutics, from the point of an acharya from Shastra, as long as he is talking, there will be no difference between what Kapila Muni is saying, what Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about, and what Prabhupada is talking about. There will always be consistent. Which is the reason they say, Guru, Sadhu. Thank you very much. Do you see? So your psychology is building your morphology. You can, in the same way, if you keep going like this in Bhakti Yoga, if you keep doing Bhakti Yoga, if you chant Hare Krishna, if you associate with like-minded devotees who are interested in Bhakti Yoga, if you read Bhagavatam, did I say 10 times? Yeah, 10 times. If you read Bhagavatam maybe 10 times, or Chaitanya Charitamrita about 10 times, and maybe Bhagavad Gita 56 times, what happens is your Chaitanya Chandra Charita Karilo Vichar. Chaitanya Chandra Charita Karilo Vichar. Vichara karite chitta paive chamatkar. You want chamatkar in your consciousness? Do you want a chamatkar in your consciousness? Do you want a chamatkar? Stick with devotees. Stick with devotees. That's the chamatkar. So, okay, too much, right? Too much science and too much philosophy. Wednesday morning. I just wanted to stop here for a second. I think I loaded like 100 years of science in like 30 minutes. Did you feel anywhere like what the hell is he talking about? Or is it okay so far? Yes, please.
I have one question.
Yes, please.
I know about genes and bhakti.
What were you talking about?
Genes and bhakti.
Oh, please, yeah.
There are two things I want to clarify.
Please.
One is that Nitya Krishna Prasad Prabhu.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's mentioned that by hearing about Krishna, the dormant love for the Lord in the heart is being. So one is the genes there, and the second thing is the use of the word or the terms of genes from a background or coming through modern education.
Mm.
The idea of genes and DNA, the term being used is specifically for the individual body and the elements, and DNA means a particular nucleic acid.
Mm.
How can you rather than the question, rather can you clarify how that's related to bhakti, which is on a translation?
I love you, Kamsari Sundar. I love you. That was fantastic. Okay, for the people on YouTube, just repeating, I have to repeat that question. It's an absolutely fantastic question. So I'll have to repeat it. Okay, listening on the videos or YouTube. Kamsari Sendas, my dear brother here, what he's asking is, if Nitya Siddha Krishna Bhakti Sadhya Kabunoi Shravanadi Shuddha Chitta Karoida. So, if Atma doesn't have, what he's trying to say, it should have already been there, so how do you explain this bridging into the genes? And the next second question he's asking is, genes is on a material platform and Bhakti is on a transcendental platform. Radhika Prasad, how can you explain the genes which is on a material platform converting, being affected by a transcendental platform of Bhakti? Did I kind of...
Yeah, just by comparing bhakti and the gene.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so comparing Bhakti to the gene. Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, so I kind of paraphrased you. Okay, you happy with that? Okay, that's fantastic. See, now... Okay. So, there is Vedas actually, this is actually going to be very helpful in preaching. Yeah? It's going to change your lives forever. So, what we need to really, one thing that misses when we, at least speaking from personally for myself, when we take up bhakti, what happens is we have a kind of, it's called a conversion experience. We have a kind of conversion experience. Everybody has that. We can't deny it. We have what's called a conversion experience. Previously we were in schools, we were in kind of a social lives in a social perspective. All of a sudden we find this knowledge and we have this conversion experience. What happens in the conversion experience, what we at least speaking for myself, please don't take any offense. What we do is we become a little bit we turn a blind eye towards that there is a whole social world outside that we have to deal with. And because we can't deal with them, what we give them is we give them names. Okay, they are karmis anyway, so they'll never understand us. Or because but we please understand the Vedic knowledge is not just understanding you're an Atma. I spoke about this last time I was here. Just understanding yourself as an Atma is not sufficient. You also need to understand your psychophysical nature as a body. What your inclinations are, what your ahankara is. Ahankara is not bad. False ego is not bad. False understanding of false ego is bad. Material body is not bad. False body is not bad. False understanding of your body, material body is false, is wrong, is bad. Do you understand? So, which is the reason Krishna always speaks about this to Arjuna, that you can keep rejecting yed ahankaram ashtritya na yotsa iti manyate. He says you will still be swabhavena niyamshati. You will still be forced because of your psychophysical body, Arjuna. Yed ahankara is in the last, like I think it's 18.72 or 70. Yed ahankaram ashritya na yotsa. If you say you don't, because of your ahankara, you say I don't want to fight. But Arjuna, you will still fight because of your psychophysical nature. You will still behave like a kshatriya because that is your propensity. That is the whole beauty of Vedic knowledge. Along with the Atma, it has a complete tailored system to deal with your psychophysical nature. So now, coming to your point. So yes, genes belongs to your material body. Bhakti and Atma belongs to the transcendental body, transcendental. But there is something called, this is the unique contribution of the Vedic knowledge. This is the unique contribution of Sankhya. You understand this, your life will be sublime. Because there is something that is helping you, your Atma which is on a transcendental position, your Bhakti on a transcendental position, there is something helping you to interact with your material body all the time. Do you know what that is? We have to go a little deeper. Ahankara is an identification. No. Whew. You kind of put a checkmate for me there. I like you, Baba. But I think, I accept that point, but I think there is a precursor. You understand precursor? There's a precursor to that. I accept your point. It's a very good point you made. That's metaphysical. Very good. You're getting there. Yes, please. No. You coming there. So there is two things in the Atma when it comes to this material world, and it has to develop its ahankar and mind and Paramatma. There is what's called a proto-physical state, and it's called Chin Matra. There is a term for it, and it's called Chin Matra. So you have what it's called a proto-physical state. It's hovering over your physical plane. It kind of hovers your physical plane. It's called Chinmatra. Where it's like you are not supposed to be in the water, but when you put your wetsuit, you can jump into the water. That wetsuit, it's like it's hovering over your body and helps you to your swimming in the sea. You understand? Or maybe a couple of oxygen cylinders. In the same way, hovering over your material body is called, there is something called a Chinmatra. Okay? That's first part of the story. The second part of the story is matter. The matter cannot mix with the Atma. The matter cannot mix with the Atma. But the matter has something called a proto-physical state also, which allows it to mix with Atma. Fantastic. God, can you share that Mahaprasad with him? Yeah? Promise. So, the matter has this hovering propensity, is waiting for your interaction. Because otherwise you couldn't function in this planet. Otherwise you'd never get an experience of this world. How can you get you are a spirit soul from spiritual Vaikuntha. You are never supposed to be here. So when you're dropped into this material world, you have been provided with all the 5, 24, 26 elements, And over these 26 elements is hovering what's called a chinmatra, a propensity to link with this matter, to desire and to accumulate and consume and feel the kind of satisfaction that you fakely wanted to have. And the matter which was never part of Bhumila Aparayam Itastanyam Prakritim Vidhimeparam Jivabhutam Mahabaho Yedam Dharita. Very good. Very good. Oh, smoking guns. Smoking guns, huh? So the matter is, you have this, Prabhupada uses this technical word called exploitation. You've been able to exploit, which is actually experiencing. That's what he means. Because he's an acharya, so he puts his foot down now and then. He's allowed to do that. He can do that. Okay? He can do anything. Anything Prabhupada does is transcendental. Doesn't matter. If he says you're an idiot, that's transcendental. So where was I? So yeah, exploiting nature. So the material nature and matter has to have a channel to open up to your chinmatra, which is tanmatra. And your tanmatra and chinmatra are always, that's where the mind and matter are interacting. So from a sociology perspective, which I'm going to go to the last point very soon now, the sociology perspective, from the genes perspective, Prahlada had actually taken birth in Hiranyakashipu's. From a genes perspective, he had nothing. From Bhakti Yoga perspective. But his chinmatra is always connecting with tanmatra from a Bhakti Yoga perspective. That's where, although the genes, materially speaking, part of this material world, because as your psychophysical nature, your blueprint of your subtle body is always wanting something from the genes, it will draw its potential out. It will draw the potential out and it will give you the potential that you want. Although it didn't have before, because of your strong desire from your chinmatras. All of a sudden the matter becomes transcendental. And you are in the spiritual world here. That's the point I keep saying. You don't have to wait until you die to go to the spiritual world. It is a myth. You can be in the spiritual world right now if you just transform how your chinmatra is working with this exploitation mentality, this consumption mentality, this bossing mentality. I am the enjoyer. Then your chinmatra changes. Based on your chinmatra, the matter around you will start behaving differently. The matter around you will start behaving differently. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? How can Kardamuni just build a palace which is more glamorous than 20,000 Agra forts? Because his chinmatra can operate. That's where yogis are performing their miracles. That's where although like in the material body, because of this strong desire for Bhakti Yoga, because of this strong desire for Atma Gyan, you want some Atma Gyan? Very good. Thanks for coming. We have this Bhagavatam. So we're reading from there. So you're acquainted with Bhagavatam? At home? Very good. So little bit every day. Gita and Bhagavatam. 4 pages a day. No pressure. 4 pages a day. 4 pages a day, yeah? Or 20 pages a day. Yeah? So how does a lion eat an elephant? How does a lion eat an elephant? Bit by bit. Yeah? So a little bit, 5 pages, 10 pages, 20 pages every day. I read 56 times. Can you believe that? Just like that, 20 pages, 10 pages, 56 times. Can you believe that? Can happen. So, where was I? So you have, with your desire of this chinmatra, you can actually change the matter. The matter around you, the so-called material world around you, material world around you, will start behaving differently. And you will be in the spiritual world here. So you don't have to wait for death to go to the spiritual world. This is a myth. Every religion has got itself into a myth like that. So now, I have 5 minutes. I want to make my final point. This is to do with the ashrama, varnashrama. We need to remember. So we have to. So now the responsibility we have when we are making these zygotes. Obviously, all the zygotes are made in the grihastha ashram. That's obviously clear now. All the zygotes are being manufactured in the grihastha ashram. Yeah. Even sannyasis, vanaprasthas, brahmacharis, whoever you are, eventually you have to come from grihastha ashram. Yes, sir. Yes. Say yes. Thank you very much. So, which is the reason Prabhupada calls the grihastha ashram an engine room. Now, the grihasthas have a very great responsibility to make good zygotes. To make good zygotes, to make good embryos. How are you going to do that? You're going to do that by engaging in a garbhadana samskara that will make sure you're attracting good, pious zygotes into your wife's wombs. Sex is not supposed to be for sense gratification. Just in case you haven't heard before, sense gratification is overrated. I think I'm completely scaring you now. You just wanted to come and do a little darshan and you think, who is this guy? Sense gratification is overrated. So if you want to attract, not you, but I'm talking about grihasthas, don't panic. So if you want to attract good devotees into the wombs, if you want to make good zygotes, good embryos, good lump of flesh that Kapila Muni is talking about, it's very important to lead a good, conscious, Krishna conscious life and perform a nice Garbhadana Samskara. So, because psychology is driving morphology, a good soul with a good psychology, prapya punya kritam lokam ushitva shashita mate Suchinam Srimatan Gehe Yoga Brashtaya Vijayate. Tatratam Buddhi Samyogo Labhate Puridayakam Yatato Yatata Bhuya. What is the rest? Tatratam Buddhi Samyogam Labhate Puridayakam Samsiddha. Yatato Samsiddha Krunam. Anyway, he eventually performs. Purva Bhesena Teneva Hriyate Yavashopisa. Because of remembering his sanskaras, Purva Bhesena. Hriyate Upisa. I'm a little rusty. My medications are getting to my head. Why I struggle like that? So, Tatratam buddhi samyogam labhate paradaikim yadate chatato bhuya samsiddha kurunandana. I think I said that. Purvabhyasena teneva hriyate yavasopisa jignasurapi yogasya shabdha brahmadi vartate. So that's how you attract a good zygote, a good pious soul. That's how this planet can become a good, filled with pious Krishna conscious souls. Only one devotee will be sufficient, one pure devotee will be sufficient to deliver this entire planet. There's a good chance we have more than that in our movement. Yeah, there's a good chance we have plenty of them. So, the more devotees, the more bhakti yoga, the more transformation of this world, the more good zygotes will come out, the more transformation, the more collective transformation of behavior of this world will happen. Which is the mission of this Krishna conscious movement. So we have to interact with people out there. We have to talk to people in their language. We need to understand what their understandings are. We don't go out there with jargons. We don't throw them jargons of, Agnata Sukruti or, I just blew Hare Krishna mantra in your ear and you'll go to Vaikuntha. No, it doesn't work like that. 7.28, Krishna says, Ashraddhaya bhutam dattam tapastaptam krutam che asat itichute partha nata pretyano iha. Nachatat pretyano iha. Ashraddhaya bhutam dattam. Any sacrifice, Sankirtan sacrifice, any sacrifice that you do, Ashraddhaya bhutam dattam. When you do it without caution, without attention of who is listening to you, you don't take consideration of the people that are listening to you, you don't take consideration of the world that you're living in, you don't take consideration of the political situation, you don't take consideration of the social circumstances that you're in, you just want to go out there and throw jargons at people, it's going to be very, very hard. With power comes great responsibility. We have great power in our hands. We have this Vedanta. We have this biogenesis. We have this technology. So we have the power to give it to people. We have to relate to them in the language, in the psychological sense that they can relate to us. We have to really stop throwing jargons and saying Agnata Sukruti will help them, because please refer 17th chapter 28th verse, Krishna saying literally any yajna that even the performer or the receiver, when it is done without attention, he doesn't get benefit in this world or the next. Asad ityuchate partha. Natatat pretya no iha. He doesn't benefit here or hereafter. So, did I give you your answer? Did I completely elude the question?
Just the aspect of how you could say that
He transformed. He gave him a new Chin mantra, and the Chin mantra transformed his genes. Do you understand? Yeah? So he gave him this new Chin mantra, new vision, Tattvadarshi. Yeah? What is the verse? 4.34. Tasmat Gurum Prapadhyeta, Jignasu Sheyam Uttamam, Tadvidhi Pranipatena, Pariprashnena Sevaya, Upadekshante Te Jnanam Jnanena Tattvadarshana. So they give you this new vision, they give you this new Chin mantra, and that Chin mantra goes and affects the genes of Jaya and Madhaya. And all of a sudden they're Bhakti Yogis. So, how are you? Please accept my apology. I'm very sorry. It's too much information. This was 150 years of information. I loaded it in an hour. This started from Darwin in 1958. He released this book called about the evolution. And then since then things have been exploding. It became a modern synthesis. And the understanding outside the world is completely screwed up. So we have to give, unless we bring this Vedantic perspective, the whole biogenesis, the whole system biology, the whole molecular biology, the organic chemistry will always remain incomplete and evasive. So I did a little bit of science, a little bit of philosophy. I know this is not going to be one of the most popular Bhagavatam classes in the world, but sometimes, my mother used to say, son, sometimes you just have to get your hands dirty. That's when I was lazy. My mother always said that. Sometimes when I eluded or evaded or went away from something, my mother used to say, son, sometimes you just have to get your hands dirty and do something to change yourself. It's not going to be automatic. So, this world is not going to be automatically Krishna conscious. It's not going to happen. We're going to have to get our hands dirty. Get some jnana, tattva darshana, get some vision, change our chin mantras, help them change their chin mantras. Who wants to do it? Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. I'm sorry this could have been a little left field for you, but I'm happy if you have any questions we can talk. If this was a little left field, again, sorry, but sometimes we just have to get our hands dirty. Yeah? Academics is a little, outside academics is a little dirty business, but what do they say? Necessary evil, isn't it? Is that what Prabhupada says? It's a necessary evil. Sometimes we just have to get our hands dirty and understand what the world is going through so we can help them out. वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की